Jabu of Unicorn is one of the most underestimated Bronze Saints in the whole franchise, but we know that he has incredible adaptability, capable of evolving his abilities after a lot of training and effort. Of course, Jabu doesn't have the same ease in growing stronger as Seiya and the other main Bronze Saints, but he still puts in the effort and manages to reach a power level capable of rivaling the elite of the Sanctuary. Therefore, the new canonical saga of Knights of the Zodiac, which is the Heaven Saga, will be the great stage where Jabu will finally shine, and he might even become the new Gold Saint of Scorpio. Hello, Saints and Amazons. Welcome to the Sempre Quis Saber channel. This is Wes speaking, and today I'm going to show you Jabu of Unicorn's full evolution and reveal how he can become the Scorpio Saint in the Zeus Saga. Did you like the topic? Share your theories in the comments, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Let's dive into this awesome video. Since the time when he was just one of the orphans under the care of the Grodd Foundation of Mitsumasa Kito, Jabu always showed an almost blind loyalty to young Saori Kito, while Seiya and the others rebelled against the mistreatment they suffered, both from the girl who thought she owned those orphans, and from the butler Tatsumi and his bodyguards. Jabu simply accepted the painful pranks imposed by the young Saori Kito, and even allowed himself to be humiliated in front of everyone, serving as her pony. To the young and spoiled granddaughter of the magnate, Mitsumasa Kito, however, Jabu did all this because he clearly liked that girl. He still didn't know that years later he would become the Unicorn Knight, and that girl would actually be the incarnated goddess Athena. Therefore, even before the mythological bond between the knight and his goddess awakened, Jabu already felt it was his duty to protect that girl and fulfill her wishes, even if he got hurt in the process, which was a completely irrational act. And that's why it was an inconceivable idea for Seiya, who was outraged that they had to live through this situation. Something that later on is completely subverted, since Pegasus becomes the main knight of Athena, putting his body through painful ordeals countless times to protect the goddess Athena Saori. But going back to the origin of the Unicorn Knight, when the 100 orphans were sent to the most dangerous corners of the planet, Jabu's destination was Oran in Algeria. There, Jabu trained under extreme survival conditions, which ranged from the scorching sun to the rain, or the intense winter that reached temperatures as low as 2 degrees. Thus, he awakened his Cosmo and earned the Unicorn Bronze Cloth, a sacred armor that has the horn of this mythological creature on its helmet. Jabu returned to Japan to take part in the Galactic War, the greatest martial arts tournament ever conceived on Earth, whose grand prize was the coveted Sagittarius Gold Cloth. In his first matches, he demonstrated his strength by crushing Ban of the Lionette, using impressive agility. However, his brilliance in battle was short-lived. When facing Shun of Andromeda, Jabu was brutally subdued by Andromeda's chains, which adapted to and nullified all his movements, resulting in a humiliating defeat. But it was at that moment that Ikki of Phoenix, who was still an enemy, appeared, and managed to easily defeat both Jabu, Shun, and Innate of Wolf. That moment broke Unicorn's pride, but it was the fuel he needed to start his true evolution in the story. As we know, after being overwhelmingly defeated in the Galactic Tournament, Jabu and T. Gek Natiba realized that the power gap between them and the main Bronze Saints, made up of Seiya, Shiryu, Hyoga, Shun, and Ikki, was enormous. In an act of humility and determination, they made the decision to return to their respective training grounds. In order to improve their skills, they wanted to gain more power to become knights worthy of helping Saori in the deadly battles that were to come. This evolution became clear during the Battle of the 12 Houses, when Saori Kito was struck in the chest by the golden arrow shot by Treni of Sagitta. This arrow was a cursed artifact that would pierce the goddess's heart in exactly 12 hours, as marked by the sanctuary's fire clock. Seiya and the others set out on a race to reach Athena's shield, which was at the end of the sanctuary's stairway, as this was the only artifact capable of saving their goddess. Meanwhile, Athena's body was left vulnerable, being protected by Tatsumi, Kiki, and Mu. And it was exactly at this moment of desperation that Jabu and the secondary Bronze Saints reappeared. They arrived in time to intercept and defeat the foot soldiers and henchmen from the sanctuary who were trying to assassinate Saori Jabu took the front line, showing that his training time was not in vain, and he now had control of his Cosmo at a much higher level. And as a fun fact, in the recent computer-generated adaptation of Knights of the Zodiac, we were treated to new scenes that expand on what happened at this moment. In the new adaptation, while Seiya and the others make their way through the 12 houses, Jabu and his friends face some Silver Saints, who fought against Seiya and the others but were still alive, and they would have been sent again to execute Saori. These were Dante of Cerberus, Moses of Whale, and Asterion of Hunting Dogs who were still alive. They faced the 5 secondary Bronze Saints. Ichi and Ban are quickly defeated, but Gek defeats Moses and falls unconscious, while Nachi also manages a draw when facing Asterion. Jabu then completely defeats the Silver Saint Dante of Cerberus. And for Jabu to be able to defeat a knight of this rank, this shows that right after returning from his second training, Jabu's power was perfectly equivalent to that of a Silver Knight. He had already surpassed the limits of his bronze rank, much earlier than we imagined. But the definitive proof of Jabu's worth in the classic saga came in the terrifying Hades saga. When the main battlefield shifted to the Elysian Fields, Earth came in Thanatos' crosshairs, the merciless god of death. Thanatos is capable of killing any being, a human, thousands of light years away with his power. And he discovered the existence of Saga, Seiya's lost sister, who was in the sanctuary under the care of Eagle Marin. In a cowardly attack, Thanatos tried to obliterate Saga, but Unicorn Jabu, together with Shayna, Marine, Kiki, and the other Bronze Saints, were there to defend Saga. Jabu didn't hesitate for a second, and defended Seiya's sister with all his strength. They formed a human shield, using the projection of their own bodies, bones, and bodies to block the invisible attacks of the god of death. There, he proved his resilience together with his friends. And before we get into the details regarding the Heavens Saga, it's essential to introduce you to the other official versions of Jabu in the franchise's spin-off works. These other works reveal the true power of this character, starting with Saint Seiya Omega, which takes place decades in the future. There, Jabu reaches the status of legendary saint. He leaves behind constant battles to live on an isolated ranch, where he raises horses and completely masters control of his Cosmo. Then he steps into action to train and help the new generation of saints, and specifically the impulsive Soma of Leo Minor. Jabu demonstrates incredible speed and strength. He easily defeats his enemies with his unicorn gallop technique. And later, Jabu returns to the front lines of Athena's army, now using a steel armor based on his old unicorn armor. Jabu proves to be the only one among the secondary Bronze Saints who managed to raise his Cosmo to the 7th sense in this story. Just like Seiya in the main Bronze Saints, and in the manga Saint Seiya episode of Riken, we see the most dramatic version of the character. And in this parallel story, where the world faces an apocalypse caused by the primordial gods, we see a scene of absolute destruction. And it's in this chaos, facing the power of the Cyclopes, that Jabu makes the most heroic decision of his life. He understands that Seiya is humanity's only hope, and he sacrifices himself to protect the saint. Jabu has his body destroyed and fulfills his mission to save Seiya, who would be the only one among the new Gold Saints capable of bringing hope to the whole world and performing miracles. And this brings us to the current moment of the canonical saga, the Heaven Saga, the arc that is the official continuation to the devastating events after the Next Dimension Saga, and which currently has 6 chapters that have already been released. After the insane conclusion of the Next Dimension Saga, the rebellion of humans reached an unacceptable limit for Olympus. As punishment for the transgressions of manipulating time and killing gods like Hades, the majestic sun god Apollo came down to Earth to carry out divine judgment. Athena had her divinity and memories revoked, and Seiya, Shiryu, Yoga, Shun, and Ikki also had their memories sealed. Apollo completely erased and sealed them. The memories of the 5 legendary Bronze Saints. They now wander through Greece as ordinary humans, having forgotten their battles, their armors, and their goddess. Athena's sanctuary, which was once humanity's place of hope, is now completely abandoned. Saori Kito, the reincarnation of Athena. She is gradually regaining her memory and divine powers. And at this very moment in the story, she is in the earthly Elysium, a sacred place in Greece that resembles the Elysian fields of Hades, where Saori is facing the goddess Care. This evil goddess represents cruel fate and violent death. She is a servant of Hades and the younger sister of Thanatos and Hypnos. She is also responsible for manipulating Saga and Canon. placing the evil spirit into Saga's body when he was still a baby, and with Athena fighting for her life. And the five main protagonists are out of the fight, with no memory of who they are. The planet Earth is completely exposed, and with that, we have a possibility where Jabu and the secondary Bronze Saints can appear and gain huge prominence in the next chapters of the Heavens Saga after the Hades Saga. Jabu and the others never appeared in the story again. With that, there's a possibility that they've been training tirelessly since the end of the Holy War. And if, in the Sanctuary battle, Jabu already was as strong as a Silver Saint, imagine the level of his Cosmo now after surviving a god's attacks, where he was driven by the need to protect his friends. And that's why he will return infinitely stronger in the Heaven Saga. But it wouldn't make sense, Jabu facing the celestial troops or Kair's servants with his old armor, which is probably damaged after taking attacks from the god of death. And that's why he should take on a new armor, which is the gold armor of Scorpio. It remains intact after Milo sacrificed himself at the Wall of Lamentation. If Unicorn Jabu really has mastery over the seventh sense, this succession would really be possible, since he was born under the protection of the Scorpio constellation. And that's why he would be on the same level, just like Seiya, Shiryu, Hyoga, Shun, and Ikki, who have already been named as the next successors of the Gold Saints. Jabu becoming the new Scorpio Saint. It would be the most epic ending for this character's story, who, since childhood, sacrificed his body for Saori, even without knowing that she was Athena. Jabu worked hard enough to evolve and earn the title of Athena's saint. And the Heavens Saga might contain this character's final resolution. Who will sacrifice himself for the last time, in the name of Athena? And you, my friends, what do you think about this possibility? Do you believe that Jabu has what it takes to take Milo of Scorpio's place in the Heavens Saga? Leave your opinion here in the comments, because I really want to know what you think about this twist in the story. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any news about the Heaven Saga. Share this video with that friend of yours who's a true Saint Seiya fan. And leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching this video until the end. See you next time. May your Cosmo burn to infinity.